But this time, it's not brought to you by the letter
Oh,
umlaut
oh,
U.
you took the umlaut out?
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
different one.
oh,
Hey, everybody. Hey, all five of you. Looks like we're there.
oh.
Happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. Um, Summer has arrived in Los
Yeah,
Angeles.
and we went live on time. That's probably
Yeah,
through a few people.
right, exactly.
Of course,
Hey, guys. Good evening.
we thought we might have to go on a half an hour early due to the bad weather conditions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got some Sly love already. Right on.
I don't
Who
really
doesn't
think it
love
had anything
Sly?
to do with weather though. I think they had to do that because all the uh all the rented tank props
Uh,
from the from the 1940s World War II movies had to be returned to the set, by midnight or something.
yeah, probably. Yeah, the great big I mean, LA's on fire, right?
Far as I know,
LA's rioting, right? Like it's insane. It's out of control.
I mean, I had to it was such a struggle. We left our house yesterday morning.
Did you have to dodge a dog on the sidewalk?
We had to, I mean, we must have had to stop at probably three lights
Oh my
and two stop
God!
signs. And then we had to park the car, which was horrible. There was only the coffee shop that we like to go to. There
Yeah.
was only two empty parking spots in
Was it
front of
burning
it.
though? Was it on fire?
The crowd on the sidewalk was on fire.
The entire ground was on fire.
But they were funny.
Wow.
They were funny. The girl with the Dykes Against Dictators sign was pretty good. She was on fire.
Oh, on fire.
Fire. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, on fire. Mm.
Yeah. But it's getting warm here.
It is warm. It was what, 90 today?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's gonna be pushing it all week long. So we're here.
Let's see, what are we doing on temperature right now? 86 where we are.
86.
And
Everybody
yeah,
want to chime in with how warm it is where y'all are at? We'll get a temperature check.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
going on? Father's Day 2025. GPDI IR. I said it without
Said it.
stumbling. Henning came out with a video this
Yeah.
weekend, which I haven't seen yet. I sat down, I wanted to watch it, and then I was like, oh, it's an hour long. I don't have an hour, so I'm gonna get to it. But I'm excited to see it. Did you
Yeah,
get to see it?
yeah, I did watch the whole thing, but I saw a preview of the music that he did for it, which was hilarious. He purposely went out of his way to do a real pop song,
I did see that.
which he did because he knew everybody was expecting him to do something, aggressive and metally and all that. And he did this just, what's really funny is the lyrics, and the lyrics were running across the bottom.
Yeah,
So it's
that was
the
hysterical.
lyrics are embarrassing when I'm reading that. I'm reading the lyrics as they're going by, and I'm just cringing because it's a love song to the GPDI, and I'm just I'm like going, yeah, it's making my skin crawl, and he's doing that on purpose, just like
Yeah.
not being able to pronounce GPDI IR. He was stumbling over that on purpose because I he was so over the moon with the product that he had to figure out a way to say something derogatory about it so it would look legit. And the only thing he could come up with was, instead of just saying valvulator, he purposely stumbled over GPDI, and he made these graphics with the G and the P and the D and the I with these little flash backgrounds, just all this silly
Oh,
stuff.
I gotta see it. Like I was telling you just before we went on, when I first got in front of the camera to say it, I would screw it up too. Like the two I's in a row would just be one elongated I, and I had to rehearse it. So it's a little bit
But
of a
just
trick.
kind of think of it like a cowboy thing, GPDI.
I think you just named it that to be a malcontent,
Probably,
just to
probably. I
just
could
to
have done
mess with
something
everybody.
different. I don't think it ever honestly occurred to us to try to think of anything different because it was the next generation of the GPDI, and all we were getting was when, and we honestly didn't take the time to think about whether anybody cared what it said after GPDI or how it looked or how you would pronounce it. The impression was we just need to get it shipped, and that was the top priority.
And that, so again, I didn't see the video.
Mm.
I saw the preview of the song that he had
Mhm.
up front.
Yeah.
I went to watch the video today. I didn't have the time, but I was peeking at the comments and I was really taken aback by, I think if you're hip to Fryette, you know what the GPDI is. It's been around for a long time,
Yeah.
like 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
But it was really, really interesting to see the comments.
Yeah.
Like it was this novel, strange thing that had just dropped from the sky.
Yeah.
And
There was two kinds of commentary.
yeah,
There were the guys that know what we do and got what the progression was.
there's
And then there was the people that, oh, this is just like an entirely unrelated product. This is just like,
oh, one of my favorite comments on there was someone said, "This reminds me of a product that they did about 10 years ago that was a
Yeah.
Kickstarter." I wonder
I
is it
wonder if
related
it's
to
the
that?
same thing. I wonder if the thing with the first four letters of the name are the same as this one. I wonder if they're in any way related. That was practically.
Yeah.
I just thought that was high sarcasm. I read it a couple times and went, no, that guy's actually serious.
So my immediate thinking, and I want to put this out to everybody who's watching, was I think when you shipped, like they sold like hotcakes, right? Like
Mhm.
they're all gone. Are they
Yeah.
all gone at this point?
Yeah, it's all wiped out. Yeah.
Which is wonderful, but at the same time, looking at, whoa, what is this? Like, there's a lot that can be in terms of educating the general public
Yeah.
about this product.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to put out there to you guys, if you are so inclined, do you have questions about the GPDI IR? And what would you like to see done in terms of informational products coming from us about the unit? Because we're about to do more of that. So if it does seem like a, what did I call it? A box of goodness or something? Like, just like, what does this thing do? Like, any thoughts along those lines, please drop it in the chat or the comments if you're catching this later on. Just love to get some of those ideas from you guys.
I kind of expected people to be underwhelmed because the things that are different about it are the things that people basically were asking to have it do, like the effects loop, and then, oh, it'd be cool if you made it so that you could add an amp like the Synergy, and there's a comment in the Henning one that was it in the Henning video. There was a comment that, Synergy should put all these features in the Syn 1 and the Syn 2, and then the Synergy thing would be perfect because I could do all the modules with it. And like,
Right.
let me tell you how disinclined the Synergy team is to do anything like that because,
Oh, interesting.
well, because they don't want to be seen as
Mimicking,
yeah, they don't want
getting
to.
on, riding.
They don't want to admit. I don't think they want to be seen as giving us credit for something that they are going to use on their product. I think that I think they got a thing about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the when we licensed the LX2 design for them, they just made it a point to make something different about it so that they could differentiate themselves from us, even though even though the key thing about that is that it's a one space power amp.
Oh,
But
so we
you know,
got
I think it's just there's kind of like there's healthy competition. There's we're actually a team that are helping each other's agendas move along, and then there's a little bit of this sort of like, well, I'm just going to one up you a little bit here,
yeah.
just to show you, I don't know what, just you
It's
know,
healthy competition.
it's just kind of like the
I don't think
the
you would be any
McCartney
different,
Brian
to be
Wilson
honest.
kind of thing, you know.
Oh, we can get to that
And
later
we'll
on.
get to that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I kind of understand that. Everybody's chiming in. Lots of mid to high 80s. Ooh, rainy and 70 in Charlottesville. That sounds awesome to me.
it does.
Oh, that
It
sounds
does.
perfect.
John B mentioned the
I've had a valvulator for years.
yeah, yeah.
I refuse to own something with a silly name like the GPDI. Cheers, John.
Yeah, like let's see, what's a really popular product with a silly name that
The Vita Vita Vegematic.
yeah, nobody wants to admit that they own it. It's a guilty pleasure, but they
In the Guitar Gear
yeah,
world?
yeah.
Um, hmm.
Yeah, have to think
I'm
about
sure some people will chime in with some stuff.
that. So John V mentioned the cabinet video I did with Christian
Yeah,
Cole.
which I haven't seen that. You want to talk about that?
that well, he just liked the way that went, and I liked the way that went. Usually, you know, none of those things are scripted, and I start to go in stream of conscious mode, and so I'll usually flub something. I'll say I'll be talking about a concept and I'll use a term that is not the right term that I meant to say. Like sometimes I've said uh, this amp uses EL34s that uses 6L6s.
Oh, right.
It's just a sort of a like, you know, when you're driving home from work and you get home, you don't even remember driving home. You were on automatic
Right.
pilot. It's the same kind of thing.
No, I've come across those moments in editing long form content with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And I think it'll be like you were about to say it doesn't have 6L6s, but the remnant of that thought comes out.
Twisted.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, so there were a couple of things in there that I meant to say a certain way, and they came out a different way. And of course, there are the armchair engineering squad out there. You know,
oh, do you have a couple flubs?
yeah,
like
they
that?
make sure that they go in there and
This guy's a clown.
yeah, it's they love that. They
Yeah,
love that
yeah.
because they get to go in and say, "Oh no, that's not really good, factual." Like, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, John's got it. Yeah, a lot of the pedal names are ridiculous. That's totally true.
Yeah.
Remember that bad monkey? Who were we talking about about the bad monkey on the show once? We had a guest on who. Oh, who was that? Anyway, yeah, yeah. There's lots of stupid pedal names.
Yeah,
The swollen pickle.
swollen.
Anyone?
Well, yes, there's people that come up with names purposely tongue in cheek that they basically won't.
Friedman.
They basically
Sam's.
they basically want to come up with something that you have to say that's ridiculous, like when you
And that you don't forget.
yeah
You know.
you it's like it's like going to Denny's and you have to order the Grand Slam breakfast or
Yeah.
some whatever the Rudy
Moon over
Tooty.
my hammy.
Yeah, exactly. It's
whatever
they're
it's called.
awful.
Yeah.
There's and then
They're all puns.
and then they run ads where they take shots at themselves for their stupid name. That's the fun part.
Not bad.
But then there's the companies that try to come up with something clever and it's just really awful. And they're the kind of companies that clone products of other people's products anyway. And then on top of that, they put this really just stupid name on top of it that they think is clever and it just falls flat. Those are the ones I love.
Yeah. You know, there is a skill to being able to deliver punny things and slide it in there. and most people don't have it. You know, you drop it in and it's a big groaner,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and some people it's actually hysterical, and it's all in that delivery, which I don't have. So,
But you know the funny thing about that video, and when I see interviews like that, I watch them and I go, I know what I was trying to convey. And sometimes it'll be something that I haven't thought about for a long time. And um
so you're going through the attic of your mind, like, what's in this
yeah,
box? What's in
yeah,
this?
yeah, what
It's
the
in
hell
here
was
somewhere.
it?
Yeah.
And these days the the factory setup for doing testing and QC and evaluating designs and debugging stuff and being able to hear things, the isolation room and all that. Sometimes I'll just go, you know what? I want to revisit that and just see how my interpretation of what was going on holds up,
Oh, cool.
right?
Yeah.
And I'll go in the room and I'll find something like on the deliverance. I found a little
Oh, yeah. You tell me about that.
a little thing. I'll ask people every once in a while, do you hear? I don't want to say, do you hear this noise or do you hear this something?
Because then you'll hear it.
Then you'll hear it.
Yeah.
I'll say, is there anything subtle in the background that bugs you or that
And when we were talking about it, I was like, no,
no,
I'm not hearing the thing that you
right? And so
solved.
I'll do something. That happened a bunch with the GPDI. I went, okay, I got this thing really dialed in now, and you go,
Now, there was
Well-
a lot of things that I was hearing with the GPDI that we would talk about that was really awesome. But with the deliverance, no.
yeah, with the GPDI, there were things that after we went through that whole process, and then I did a couple of more refinements,
And those were things that I didn't.
and I said, okay, bring it over. I wanted to do those two before you get too deep into it.
Yeah.
And then you took it back, and he goes, what did you do
Yeah.
different? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
Actually, I said
love
there were
that.
a lot of things. That's not true. There was really one major thing. And it was incredible being there while you did your tweak. And it was like, everything is solved for me.
Yeah,
Please let me take this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and work, you know?
yeah, and
was
you
so
probably
happy.
want to get home before I call you halfway
Bring it back. Bring
halfway
it
home.
back.
Turn around right now.
Yeah.
I just.
Graphite and Cigars wants to know what you're drinking.
Sparkling water. Sorry, that was a letdown.
Yeah, we're both on agua right now.
But that could change.
So
soon.
before we move on, is there anything from that cabinet video, since you brought it up, that you want to clarify? Like, oh, I said this, but I actually meant this. Is it worth talking about?
Well, there was one thing about the back, the MDF back cover.
Yeah.
And that was a perfect example of something that I was talking about, the concept of the back being the same kind of plywood as the rest of the cab, as opposed to some compressed wood byproduct back like MDF. And I think I said early Marshalls had plywood and then they switched to MDF, and that was not correct. They actually switched to particle board.
Oh, yeah. That's.
But
what I thought.
it was the point was that the composite woods are denser and tend to be more acoustically inert. They don't resonate
Right.
like a good piece of plywood, but then a crappy piece of plywood will be sort of in between. And then there's chipboard, which is
Shitboard.
which is like the stems and seeds of plywood. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's got all the knots, all the scraps,
It's the chicken McNuggets of the wood world.
Yeah, like
Pizza
there's a
parts.
wishbone in there and some rat droppings and a couple
totally.
of nails and maybe the woodworker the guys running the mill, somebody like dropped a penny in there, or he lost his they're just spitting chaw into it, or somebody lost their finger, anything can be in there.
Yeah.
So there's chipboard, and then there's particle board, which is more refined. Chipboard is the thing that you see when apartment buildings are going up in California. You can see where they don't want to spend any money
Yeah.
on this part of the
Yeah.
construction, and then
Which is a lot more than
a
you
lot
wish it
more.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, when I have friends from Japan coming in here,
Yeah.
and they're driving around, and they see construction going up, they're horrified.
Oh, yeah.
They're horrified
Yeah,
by what
yeah.
you can't even make a building like that in Japan with that kind of construction. I don't
Well, it's
even
funny out here, builders, like,
in
we
Germ-
kind of don't have weather in Southern California.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
It's kind of mono weather
but we
all
do
year
have
long.
we do have fires.
Yeah, we do have fires. We do have fires. But all wood burns. But my thing is, like, that's the funny thing about everything in Southern California. Like, the rare times that it does rain, everything leaks.
Yeah,
Everything leaks.
yeah,
It's just not built for weather.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Compare that to like a home in Wisconsin.
yeah.
I'm sure they
Yeah,
build real homes in
in
Wisconsin.
Germany. Oh man,
Yeah.
the buildings are made of stone, and the windows are these metal frames with really good weather sealing around them,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, they're
Yeah.
just like and you have to build a home that way. You
Yeah.
can't take any shortcuts. So anyway, there's chipboard, there's particle board, and then there's uh, LDF, low density fiber board, and then MDF, medium density fiber board.
Those
and
have to have
HDF.
different acoustic properties as
Yeah,
well, right?
and it's all about the cost. So the MDF is just kind of like the middle grade of the finer compressed stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then I think I said something about the
Sorry, that's funny. Brendan says, "Is there anything the Japanese don't do well?" Right? And then Mark's like, "Japan, you used to make walls out
yeah,
of paper."
exactly. It used to make buildings out of paper, so and clothing, and everything else, robes.
That's funny. At work, yeah.
Um,
Sorry, I derailed you.
No,
You're
that's-
talking about MDF, and that being the mid grade of the compressed
Right.
pieces, parts, kind of woods. And then I guess you misspoke on the video
Oh,
about.
I was talking about the WEM Starfinder cab,
Oh,
which I said is a complete piece of crap. It's all made of
we talked about that on the show once.
MDF all the way around, and that was not correct. The WEM cab is MDF on the back or particle board on the back, and it actually depends on when it was made. And that was the thing about what's on the back of the Marshall cabinet, depends on when it was made. There was plywood, and then there was particle board, and then there was a period where it kind of shifted back and forth for a while, and then it settled down on whatever they settled it down
Isn't that
on.
interesting? And like
But-
when those things were being made, there wasn't so much the anal retentive, oh, it has to be made out of this or
Yeah.
be worth a damn. It's like remember Eric Johnson talking about finally realizing that 1954 Strat that he had called Virginia that he sold and he regretted, but he had that during, I think he had it during the Tones time, and definitely had it during Via Musicom. It's like that guitar just sounded different than every other Strat I've ever had. And then he finally figured out later on it was made out of sassafras. Now we've in Fender world.
That's a
all our
wood. I thought it
lives,
was a T.
Yeah.
Right, I know.
It's been like, okay, you either have an ash body or an alder body, and that's what you got for old
Yeah,
Fenders.
yeah,
And he's like,
yeah.
no, this thing was sassafras.
There was some stuff that was made out of pine.
Oh, have you ever held a pine guitar? It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
the lightest
the
stuff
Nelson's a
imaginable.
pine guitar.
Oh, wait,
It's
your
pine.
green one?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a pine body with a maple top and a maple neck.
Huh, interesting.
And you would look at that and think, okay, this is a
That's right.
mahogany body with a maple top and a mahogany neck. No, it's a pine body with a maple neck,
And when you told me about that, I think the first thing I asked was, is it super neck heavy?
and it's not.
And yeah,
It's unusually balanced. You wouldn't expect it to be that balanced, but it is.
yeah, that's pretty bananas.
But what manufacturers do is, you know, fast forwarding way forward to going from where they started, where nobody would really knew what they were doing, and they were just working with available materials, to starting to go, all right, well, we're spending too much money and we're going to ship more of these to the United States, and there's duty, or there's distributor markup and stuff, and there's shipping costs, so we got to figure out how to save money on the assemblies so that when it gets there it won't be too expensive. There's that kind of paying attention to what it costs to make a product, and then there's just trying to make the cheapest thing possible, like making an entire MDF cab, for example. Sides, top, bottom, back, and the only thing that's not MDF is the baffle. And then there's some that are 100% MDF. And those, they think, okay, this is the cheapest that we can make a cab. The cheapest. We use the cheapest materials. This is the cheapest cab we can make. And then you find out two things. After you've shipped that cabinet twice, it's just going to start falling apart because it's all MDF. And there's nothing that you can do to reinforce it inside to keep MDF from just crumbling around the joints. It's just going to fall apart because it's compressed crumbs
Yeah,
already. You
yeah.
can't get it wet. You ever seen a full MDF 412 cab that was sitting in somebody's basement when the water heater, the bottom came out of the water heater, and the whole bottom of the cab is like expanded. It's turned
Yeah.
into mud.
Whoa.
It's really hilarious. It expands, and the vinyl peels away, and then there's this crumbly shit on the bottom.
Would that be
That's
like
what's wrong with those.
90s crate cabinets?
Yeah, and only now making a cabinet 100% out of that same material doesn't save you money anymore because the shipping cost has gotten so high that particular cabinet is 50% more expensive to ship than a plywood one because it's so heavy.
Yeah.
And shipping costs for 412 cabs is through the roof right now. So if you're going to have a 20% heavier cabinet, that's really going to cost a lot more to ship. So now the price that the end user sees when it lands at their door,
Hmm.
it's almost more cost effective to make it out of better materials that are lighter. So there's that.
How about that?
And I thought about making cabinets out of bamboo at one time because bamboo is a renewable resource. It's really cheap to make, and manufacturers that make bamboo products are figuring out how to make kind of plywood style products out of it. But that isn't what happened. That isn't what
Did
happened.
you ever go so far to do a prototype to hear how it
I
sounded?
actually contacted a supplier, a direct supplier in China to get that specialized in bamboo product, and they said, yeah, we make it in sheets, and you can sell it. Except by the time it gets here, it's so expensive. It's more expensive than Baltic birch. So that kind of killed that idea. But it was really lightweight and really strong. I thought this would be great for a cab.
Was this Fryette era or VHT era?
This was Fryette. Era. I was just thinking, how could we make a lighter 412 cab? Because that's when the shipping thing started. The dynamic started changing, and I started looking at that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, not wanting to get too far afield. I mean, we had we decided to do a show where we talk about Sly and the Family Stone, which for me was I grew up when they came out, and that was a musical era where there's a funny dynamic going on with groups like that where they made such a huge impact, and but not for the reason that bands usually make huge impacts, like the Beatles had an impact, but Sly and the Family Stone had a huge impact that was much bigger than the individuals in the band, and the direction they took almost wasn't like they had a producer and management that was like directing and refining them as musicians and refining their career. They were just like a freight train, just barely hanging onto the rails, just flying into the public consciousness. And then and I thought that'd be a really interesting topic. And then the next day, Brian Wilson goes, and this is another person that has this really unorthodox approach to music. And now he's like a generational genius figure that transformed music. And he was just some guy in Torrance just trying to figure out, how to get girls, and ended up being this mega genius. And so I just, that's why I wanted to do this, because Sly Stone was a genius of a particular type, and Brian Wilson was an incredible genius of a different type, and they both had this monumental impact on music. And I think more people would recognize Brian Wilson's contribution, and that there was this camaraderie and kind of competition between them and the Beatles, the Beach Boys and the Beatles, that we were all aware of. But Sly and the Family Stone were a different animal entirely. And it wasn't that they were about the creative process and discovering in the studio. They were just a bunch of party animals that were having just cracking good time. It was all about joy and circumstance, and whatever happens, and every day is a new day.
What's interesting is, Sly and the Family Stone. Like,
well,
if you
first of
saw
all,
them
there are
perform-
actually some family members in it, but
it really had this, their performances were like, it felt like, if it's a family, at the end of the show, they're still family. So in a sense, like, the show goes on. Like, it's all, like, it'd just be this feeling of, are you guys just playing this music, 18 hours a day, and then you crash and you get up, and then
you do it all over again.
Happens again, like it never ends.
That's what it seems like.
And a band that really had, it was structured differently because it wasn't around one, chief motherfucker in charge like Sly, but Fishbone was like that too.
Yeah.
Like these insanely strong musicians. You just go see the show, and like everybody's insane all at once. Like,
that was
insanely great. You're like, what in the hell am I experiencing?
That was the
and it's
that
not
was
like
about
coming
that was
out
the
and
thing
going,
about Fishbone, is they were just sparkling and on fire, and
they're not going, we're going to play this song for you.
Right. No.
Get ready for this song. It was like, I remember when I first heard of Fishbone, and we'll get back to Sly. I was at school one day, and a friend says, have you heard of Fishbone? No. He's like, they're so crazy. They'll like play their song, and then in the middle of this song, the trumpet player just starts playing the theme to Rocky.
Yeah.
I'm like, and as a kid, I'm like, I have to hear this shit.
I went to see,
And they were so far beyond that.
yeah, I went to see him at a club. A friend of mine goes, "Oh, hey, there's this all black punk rock band. You got to go see." And I went, "Oh, I want to see that." We went down there, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? These guys are all over the place."
But they were a punk band. They were a ska band. They were a funk band.
Right.
They were a metal band. They were an R&B band. Like legit at every style.
Yeah, they shared way more of the funkadelic thing than just being.
Oh man, they were the only band that ever scared Prince. Prince is like, Fishbone, holy shit.
Yeah, yeah. Don't even know where that's. And Sly's the same thing. People just look at it and go, "Where is that even coming from?
Yeah.
How do I even latch onto that?"
Right.
And but people were trying, and you could tell
You can't force that.
they're trying to dress like them. They're trying
Yeah.
to do that energy and all of that, and you could just tell that they just weren't up to the task. And like Edgar Winter. Edgar Winter's White Trash did a song that is just exactly like, you can tell. I'm going to sit down and write a Sly and the Family Stone type song for us to do because I think they're so great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that song. I don't remember the name of it right now. That's the one that Joe Bonamassa did with that
I
Beth,
don't know.
the girl singer Beth. What was her name?
Uh,
Bonamassa discovered this girl singer and he went out and toured
okay.
with her.
I don't know.
And she sang that song.
The Edgar Winter song.
Yeah, the Edgar Winter song. And you knew that he was trying to channel Sly and the Family Stone. And
Yeah.
it had a lot of those elements, but what it didn't have was that freight train impact. It was a cool song.
Yeah.
And it was fun to listen to. And even the lyrics.
Beth Hart.
Yeah, Beth Hart.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks, Boomer.
it's give it everything you got. Is that it?
Oh, Loretta Swit died too?
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Give it everything you got. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember.
Then sit down.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
kind of doing this, trying to do the thing where you're like, "Oh, the squares, go home."
Yeah.
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 Only.
Almost like I'm a revival preacher and
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm shouting at the congregation.
But everybody in the band, everybody in Sly and the Family Stone were their own personalities. They had a ton of
And that
it.
was the thing where I'm relating them to Fishbone, because Fishbone was the same thing. It's like, wow, it's amazing you're all able to get on stage and not start throwing punches because you're all really strong personalities. You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's coming at you. It's coming at you. You know? Do you have a favorite Sly Stone song?
Oh, yeah. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow.
I wish we could play
Bow,
it and not get
bow.
popped on here.
Bow, bow. Well, just that 1-4-5 jam, really super funky jam. And it's just this repetitive jam, and the vocalizations are just getting progressively more absurd as the song
Yeah.
goes, until
as
it's
he
just
tends to do.
gibberish, but it's still funky and you still can't stop listening to it.
I was playing my favorite Sly song is well, I used to play those Sly covers that the Meters used to do.
Oh yeah.
Because I was in a Meters tribute band a long time ago, and we would play Sly tunes in that band. But In Time, which is the first track on Fresh, that album, in 1973. That's the funkiest song in the history of the world, I think. And I think Sly's playing this super clean, clearly DI guitar part. It's this theme that comes in before every verse. And it's like so sloppy. Like, I think the last time he plays it, he even like clearly misses a note or two. Who cares? I think he was high as a motherfucking kite by that time.
Oh, Sly?
Yeah, because this was by 73. So I think he was, headed
It just
in
had
that
this
direction at that
energy that it didn't matter. That was the one thing about that band, was they really preached this, we're all the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they didn't just preach it, they meant it. They lived it. Drummer's a white guy, the horn, there's a couple white guys in the horn section. And they did a live appearance on Merv Griffin. So it's a daytime show. So they got to go in there like at 8
Merv.
o'clock in the morning, right? and rehearse and then get the sound and
Could you
everything.
imagine?
And then
Being Sly.
being Sly. And then
8 in the
around
morning.
10 o'clock in the morning, all right, we're going on. We're gonna start shooting. And he's like, oh, I've only had 4 tabs of acid. I'm just about ready to eat the fifth one before I gotta get that down before we go on, before we go live. And by the time they get on, he and he
Did they do the interview with
they
him?
bring him in and they start interviewing him, and he's so high, he's literally doesn't even know how to talk.
I
He's
have to
just
see
kind of
this.
doing this thing where he's giggling to himself, and he's trying to form a sentence, and
He's
he
got his
can't.
own internal dialogue.
Yeah, exactly.
He's asking himself his own questions and answering them.
Yeah.
But like nothing's coming out.
Just gibberish is coming out.
Yeah.
And he's kind of
Merv Griffin?
laughing up his sleeve and stuff, and he's got this expression on his face like the joke's on everybody else, and you're looking at him going, this dude, man, he is out of his mind. How are they going to get out of this one? And so Merv decides, I'm not going to be able to have a coherent conversation with this guy anymore. This is just like, hey, so you got a song you're gonna play
It's a
for us?
little too like I'm the straight man.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
uncomfortable.
And of course, that's all. That was all leading up to that they were going to perform a song, right?
Yeah.
And so Sly sits down on the keyboard and he starts playing sort of a gospel thing, like he's going to start the Sunday sermon or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
You know, playing the
Yeah.
B3
Hell
like
yeah.
as if he was starting a gospel
Yeah,
song.
it's
And he
church
kind
time.
of slides his fingers and he's like got this, 8 million watt smile,
And how's he playing? Because that's the funny thing.
playing fantastic.
Yeah. So he can't talk, but put him behind the keyboard and it's like it's on.
It's automatic with him.
Yeah.
He is the instrument.
That's awesome.
They couldn't, hand him anything. The way you'd hand you ever see the way he holds the guitar?
Yeah.
Do you ever see the way Brian Wilson holds the bass?
No. Oh
the-
my gosh. Look what's flying
look at
in.
this. Woo. Okay, so whoever asked what we're drinking now.
Made it a little lighter.
Wow,
now we're
thank you.
It is now officially margarita wedding.
Cheers.
So margaritas.
Ooh.
Um,
Fresh lemons.
yeah, lemons and limes. The Fender bass originally had this little wood, and this is the Ocho from Steve Voss, Steve Voss.
Oh,
the guy
yay.
that came by and visited the factory, Ocho.
Awesome.
And so that's what's in the
we got here?
glass. That's what's in the glass.
Yay.
So the Fender bass had this metal cover over the pickup. That was one thing. It also had this little piece of rosewood, kind of like a finger,
Oh yeah, the rest.
the
Yeah.
rest that most people are like, how did you use that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you look at I saw a picture of Brian Wilson holding a bass, playing a part. And one of the comments under the picture was, now I know what that little piece of wood was for, because he's holding the bass. Oh,
Holy
this is
moly.
evil.
I can't
This
even
is
look at that
evil.
right now. Oh, it looks insane.
This is like a pound cake, that
Came from Ralph's.
a pound cake from Ralph's, but it's been soaking in rum and
Cointreau.
Whose idea was
That
this?
was hers.
Nico-chan?
Yeah. So
Thank you.
So you look on the Beach Boys on Ed Sullivan,
Yeah.
and he's holding the bass and he's grabbing that block of wood with these 3 fingers and playing the strings with
Oh
his thumb.
yeah, interesting.
And somebody went, "Oh, that's what that's for."
Oh.
And Sly holds the Telecaster the same way. He had that thin line telly with the
Yeah.
semi-hollow body,
Yeah.
and he's kind of playing it like
Wes.
Wes Montgomery.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's playing everything with his thumb,
Yeah.
with a wah-wah. And you look at his hands, the way he's playing chords, and it's all whopper-jawed and like, what the hell is he even doing?
Yeah.
And how does it sound? It sounds fucking phenomenal. It's funky, it's clean, it's beautiful, it's rhythmic, and it's such an, you can tell what he's playing. He's not looking down. He's just looking at the audience, beaming his force field at the audience, and he's just holding the guitar like a 10-year-old just starting to learn how to play guitar would hold it. And it was funky. So anyway, he starts playing the organ, and then the B3, and then the band starts coming out on the stage behind him, and then they start playing.
Mhm.
And as soon as they start playing, he gets up and he starts going to interact with the audience. And the audience, this is a daytime Merv Griffin show audience.
Yeah.
And it's really, really square.
Yeah.
And does that stop him? No. He gets everybody of people, who is this crazy black guy? And it's like, what is he dressed like that for? What's wrong with him? Why can't he talk? And then a few minutes later, those same people are like on their feet, clapping their hands, just boogalooing, just shaking it and having a great time.
Wow.
Then he goes back and starts playing, and it was just, I just remember that episode like it was yesterday. I was just thinking, just nothing but raw power and super positive and super fun. And you knew that after they were all done and packed all their shit and got out of the studio, they were just like probably just trying to figure out, okay, let's go back to the hotel and keep the party going,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the next 3 or 4 days.
Huh.
It's just,
It's really fascinating to me. I mean, it's just kind of occurring to me right now.
but everybody
Like-
in the band played an unorthodox way. Cynthia
Mhm.
Robinson, was
Yeah.
it Cynthia Robinson?
Yeah.
Oh, she played trumpet.
Yeah.
She's the voice, the squares going. That's her. And she just passed away a couple of years ago. She was
bad.
really high powered. She had tons of personality that it came through, and she played great trumpet.
Yeah.
And she just had all this, just a bundle of energy. And then, of course, Larry Graham was the bass player, right?
Yeah. Not on everything,
Right.
but yeah.
And did Bootsy play in Slide Family
No,
something?
no.
But anyway, I was Larry Graham, and for a while on some stuff, and then there's another guitar player whose name I can't remember right at the moment. Had big. This is the time period when everybody had big hollow body guitars, the big jazz style guitars.
Like a 175.
Yeah,
funk
yeah,
band? Yeah.
they're the
You know what? A 175 is a great guitar for that.
yeah,
It's a great
and they
guitar
all
for
had it
that.
because it was the expensive guitar
Oh,
with the gold pickups, the gold hardware.
but you know,
All the
like,
brothers got the gold hardware, right, and the maple finish.
oh, that's cool.
And again, the guitar, when it came for any one of those guys to solo, they didn't really solo. They just kind of comped and played
Well, you know,
funky
like-
rhythms and stuff. They didn't actually play any blazing solos. They actually sometimes they sounded like that is the most ridiculous bad, just fuzz tone guitar solo sound. Playing that kind of guitar
Yeah.
into a fuzz pedal and a wah-wah into an acoustic 370 amp with two 15s and a horn in
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
how can that possibly sound any good? And it sounded atrocious just on the sound alone. But in the context of the whole thing, you didn't think anything of it other than it all fit together
Well, it's
perfectly.
interesting how that music is put together. It's like James Brown's band was similar in the conception. Actually, I would say when funk was being codified, it was really interesting for me to go back and listen to, like at that time, contemporary West African music, like King Sunny Ade,
Mm-hmm.
because in that music, it's not where, okay, I've got the acoustic guitar, I've got the guitar, I'm just playing the chords, and then you all kind of reinforce that, and we all kind of do this thing together.
Yeah.
High life music and funk music are very similar in the conception. Like the grooves are different, but it's like, it's contraptual. The bass will go don't like nobody's holding down like I've got the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, this is my territory.
Yeah, no. In fact,
I saw King Sunny live.
yeah,
Like 3 guitar players
Yeah.
all playing Telecasters into twin,
yeah.
and none of them was like,
And nobody's playing the same thing, and it all works together.
and nobody's like really playing a
if you
solo
only
per se.
listen-
They're just
no.
like they're 3 guys with tellies and
So
twin.
badass. And everybody's
I kept
so
watching those 3.
disciplined.
Which guy is the guy that's going to stand up and wail? No, it never happened the
No.
whole night. It was just like
And
all
every
this-
song's like
this-
25 minutes
yeah.
long. Like, I'm playing this one little part for 25 minutes. And everybody's disciplined because if somebody starts playing more than that, it's going to all fall apart.
Because the whole idea is they're creating a groove to get everybody into, and before you know it, it's like there's all these, all the backup singers, the female backup singers, they come up and they start, and King Sunny's face, he's sweating like crazy, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they come up and they just start sticking dollar bills on his face,
Wow.
and we're like, what the hell's going on there? That's just he's sweating profusely on his face, and they're using his sweat to stick dollar bills to his face. So his face is covered with dollar bills,
That is
and they're
awesome.
falling off, and then they're putting more on. And you forgot all about what the band was doing, other than you're just going, what, huh?
Oh,
well,
this is the sickest stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible. And that,
But like that song I was talking about, In Time, the Sly song, that's a great example of that. And also the drumming, like very much what David Garibaldi became famous for with Tower of Power, like
just intense and
setting-
repetitive, but kind of understated.
Oh, yeah, and
That drum,
whatever.
the Sly's
Yeah.
drummer just. I got something stuck in my throat.
Rusty Allen, I think, was the
He
bass
was just-
player on that track.
He had this thing. He just looked straight ahead of the audience like this, and he was just boom, da-doom, 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 da-doom. He didn't look at the other guys in the audience. He wasn't like, doing fancy things with the sticks or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Just leaning into it with his shoulder.
And then also like it's fun to think about like the character, like how the drum kit sounded on those records, because if you think, okay, 73 or whatever, this wasn't Deep Purple.
Right.
This wasn't guys diming Marshall majors. This was like, no, you have horns. We have to hear the horns. We have to hear the organ. We have to hear this clean guitar part. And so the drummer can kind of just sit in this pocket. It's not this.
Right.
It's right here,
Yeah.
you know? And so the character like watching Garibaldi's like that too, very controlled, and I should.
But the guitar players and the bass players were all about what was the cool stuff to play. Not that it was the best sounding thing. It was just the new thing, So
Like-
you would
like
see
the acoustic when these.
So you would
came
see
out.
Sly and the Family Stone. You'd see them with all acoustics behind them,
Yeah.
and then the next time it would be all custom amps, or vice versa. It would be customs first, and then acoustics later, and
Yeah.
then
you could see orange.
and then the
being
next
part
time
of
it would
that,
be all
Yeah,
orange.
yeah,
and
yeah.
all the brothers were using.
Woo!
Stevie
It's so
Wonder was
cool.
using orange, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden all the brothers are using orange, right? And like, why are you using orange amps? I heard one of those
Because they look bad.
because they look badass.
Yeah, yeah. I still want orange amps. I have no need for them, but
I
man, that's the
I
coolest
have
looking
bought
shit.
and sold a couple of orange amps because that's just a badass amp. I like the knobs and I like the whole graphic thing. I gotta have that, and I get it. And I go, there's nothing I can do with this.
Yeah, I've never moved around a heavier cabinet than
Yeah.
early '70s orange.
Yeah.
Talking about cabinet construction. What the hell
Yeah,
was they made
yeah.
out of? Melted down anvils.
It was a bizarro amp design, but
Yeah, and then so
it didn't matter. It was orange and it looked cool,
yeah, still look really
and
cool.
everybody. And if you ask anybody why they were using them, they couldn't tell you. I was in a band with a guy that had an orange or 120, and there was another guitar player in that band that was leaving, and I was replacing him, and he had an orange amp also. And I asked him why he was using it. I said, "You got this really kind of barking mid-range sound." He goes, "Yeah, that's what I don't like about the amp. Then why do you use it?" He says, "Well, the other guys in the band's using
Oh
it."
yeah, well, it's interesting, like being in kind of the group that you are and I am, even tangentially, like these guitar players that fetishize tone. But it's like it's music and it's the entertainment industry, and there is such a thing as guys who are like, look, it sounds like a guitar.
Yeah.
Like I'm up here on stage to perform and be strident and all of that. And it's like, do you think Prince gave a damn about what that cloud guitar was going to sound like? He's like, no, I have this idea of this guitar that, like, when you see it, you're going to go, what in the fuck? I've never
Right.
seen it. And that's what he was after.
Right.
He's not like, I mean, the guy played this Hohner Telly.
It was
his whole entire-
irrelevant. What it,
Yeah, it's irrelevant. He's like, and his attitude was so, you know, balls the size of the planet. He's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what I pick up. You're going to love what I play, and that's it. End of story.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
duck.
It wasn't the tone quests. It was just, yeah, we're using this right now.
Totally different way of approaching.
Of course, if it's a manufacturer that can afford to just give them a whole backline to tour with, that was even better because
Sure,
then they didn't have to spend. They could spend.
sure.
They could spend the money on party stuff.
I really miss music that was coming from that perspective, like the 1970s funk bands. Like that's a whole type of playing guitar. Like, what was the name of the? Oh, I forget his name. That dude from Rufus. Holy shit!
Oh, yeah.
Was he bad?
Yeah.
What's his name? Dude.
The guy was so understated.
Oh,
But
but he could play great lead too.
he didn't. He would just like play a little riff.
Oh man, he was great. What's his name? He's got kind of a cool name. Yeah, the Rufus guitar player.
Tony Maiden.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's him. That guy's an MF. Like Leo Nocentelli from the Meters. Like all these great, clean rhythm motherfuckers.
I saw
you
the
know?
Meters open for the Stones in Seattle in '76.
Oh wow.
It was the Meters and Stevie Wonder and the Stones, and it was Ron Wood's first tour with them.
Wow, really?
And
Remember what Leo was playing through? Was it Twins or acoustic or?
it was again a thin line telly
Uh-huh.
with the humbuckers,
Yeah.
the Fender humbuckers,
Yeah.
through a custom with two 15-inch JBLs,
Oh,
custom head
okay.
and a custom cabinet, custom 200 with two D130s in it, and oh my God, was it bright! And he just kind of did this, and every pick attack just went through your forehead, but it was amazing
Yeah.
because they just did this thing. It was just
Oh man, that band. I'm such a Meters
nobody
fan.
was grandstanding in bands
No.
like that.
No.
They were just all part of the machine, the
Yeah.
groove machine.
And that's really what it was
Yeah.
like, you're here for the groove, right? That's what we're doing for you. You know?
Yeah.
If you don't care about that, then this shouldn't be here. That's what it was all about. Bates is asking this question. Do you guys think a guitar player can go his whole life? I'm gonna blow this up big so I can read it. In a certain genre, but not understand how to play chords in that genre? Or is that just not a possibility? Well, I wouldn't say that, because I'm sure BB King knew some chords, but man, like so much of his career, he would have somebody playing rhythm guitar and he would be the color commentator with his lead guitar, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess depending on how you set up, you know, your band or your situation, you could get by without that. Trying to think of some other. That's who immediately popped to mind. Like not knowing that, like the standard chords, chord progressions. Yeah, you'd have to be like a real specialist in what you bring to the band. And
Well,
I would think,
BB King would say that he didn't know how to play chords, although
yeah,
early in his career he was playing some pretty complex chords.
yeah,
But he stopped doing that and he just started playing the riff. Albert
Yeah.
Collins with the capo
mm-hmm.
and the thumb
Yeah.
and a finger pick and just like these 4 riffs the
Yeah.
whole entire time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The blues is so funny like that, where, you know, when I have students and I'm talking about this, it's like people who haven't spent much time with that music and they're just kind of getting hip to the basic components of the music and talking about it being overly simple. It's like, yeah, but the great practitioners, like all night long, would go, like, if you know Albert Collins, you always know what's coming next.
Yeah.
If you know Albert King, you always know what's coming next. But they're so fucking good at doing it. You're like, do that thing
Yeah,
again
just
that
keep
you
doing
played
that. Keep doing
500
it.
times.
Yeah.
Keep doing, please, just keep doing that thing, you know?
I played the grooves out of Albert King's Livewire Blues Power album.
Dude, that's one of the greatest records.
And pretty much just one track all the time,
Which one?
which is the take the little baby in the little
That's
baby
Blues
bed,
Power. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
kicking
Everybody
and
got the
kicking
blues.
and crying and kicking up, messing up the little baby bed. He got the blues. Bing! Just and I stood in front of him in a 1,200 seat hall in Seattle, right in front of his amp, and when he did that, yeah, but he didn't really. I was watching him,
Uh-huh.
so when he did that, it was also almost like I was insulated from the attack of this note
Oh, interesting.
because the expression on his face was just pure joy, just pure emotion. He was floating in the air. He was practically levitating. He's up on his toes and he does this one bend, and the expression on his face was, yeah. And he did that when he played.
Yeah.
You could see it in his face. He would go,
Yeah.
yeah, I hit it. Johnny Winter kind of did that too.
Yeah.
And then when he did a clam, he still was up there, but he would go, oh
Yeah.
But-
And you'd hear it. I love that about him. Like, and I think it's in Blues Power too. You hear the mics catching him. He'd play it. Ow!
Yeah.
Like, you know, he'd play step off the note and he'd like do commentary. in
Yeah,
his
I
voice.
saw the expression on his face when he clammed that note, and he just went, "Oh!" Only it was a conversation with the audience. He was just like going, "I know that you know that I know that I messed that up, and you know that I messed that up, and hey, we're all being honest about this here. How about this one?" And he would follow it up with another one, and he would just go, "Yeah," you know. And Johnny Winter would do that too. He would like do this horrendous clam, and he would go, "Yeah, baby," just scream it. Like I did that on purpose,
Oh,
you know.
man. Albert King is my favorite.
Yeah, he
Albert
was.
King is my favorite.
But Albert Collins was
Oh, Albert
Was-
King's bad. Bad.
was hilarious because he, like you said, it didn't matter what he played on the guitar because it just had this unusual sound, this unusual attack.
Yeah.
He knew how to deliver a note and a bend. And he, you know, I have met some guitar players that have a particular style for this particular music.
Yeah.
There's video footage of Rory Gallagher
Oh.
sitting in with Jack Bruce
Cool.
and Ginger Baker,
Oh, interesting.
and they're gonna play a politician. And so as they're walking on stage, Bruce is going to him. It's just you just play this just like that. And Rory's going, yeah, got it. And he get on stage. He cannot play that riff to save his fucking soul. He cannot play it. So he just starts playing Rory Gallagher over it, and Jack Bruce is looking at him,
What are you doing? Yeah.
and he's like going, and just like, no, way on the other side of the planet. I'm doing Rory. That's all I know how to do. I've met a few guitar players that they know how to do what they do and not fuck all else. And you gotta love that. I mean, you try it.
Yeah,
You
right.
try doing what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
Walk
It's
a
like
mile in my shoes.
that's just funny. I like it's like, was it an obstinance? Like, you know who you asked up on stage? Like, what do you want me to do? I'm
And-
gonna do the thing that you wanted me to do, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
bringing me up here.
But then there's Brian Wilson, who's like, he sees as an opportunity. He's surrounding himself with music, and he's getting into, I can do this. And he gets an opportunity to get into studio, and he's got friends helping him. Well, this is what a mixing board is. This is what producing a song is about, and songwriting and producing and envisioning and getting a vision and executing on that vision. He gets like this firsthand crash course very early on in career with the best session players in the business, the best producers in the business, and he's just absorbing it.
Yeah, the Wrecking
He's-
Crew, he had access to those guys.
Yeah, so he
They grow
pretty
up in
early on
Hawthorne?
figures out that, why am I killing myself trying to play the parts? I've got all these guys. I'll just tell them what to do. And at first they're just kind of going, well, we'll just do like this. No, you know what I hear you doing? And all of a sudden,
This kid is saying this
this
too.
kid
Yeah.
is telling these pros what to do, but they're going, they get they-
You have a good point there.
you
All right.
actually you got ears and a brain. What a concept, and this kid knows where he's going. All right, let's ride this and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's got them all playing his tune,
Yeah, yeah.
literally. And you can see that later on, where they're just, okay, now the mission isn't just to play the chart or to get it in one take. The mission is to get on this guy's ride and see where it's going to go,
Right.
because
right,
we haven't encountered this before.
Right.
And out of that, I mean, basically Brian Wilson was not necessarily by him. He wasn't a contemporary of the Beatles in the sense that he was McCartney and Lennon's contemporary. He was their contemporary as a visionary, but he was McCartney and Lennon and George Martin all rolled into one guy, where Lennon and McCartney needed George Martin to enable their vision.
Yeah. How much did Brian? Did Brian wind up performing on the records, or did he just wind up being writer, arranger, producer?
He was involved in creating the vocal harmonies,
Right. Right.
and he played bass on a lot of stuff, and he would basically just play some keyboard parts and this and that. Very early on, he was the bass player in the band, and he was writing the songs
Right.
or co-writing the songs,
Yeah.
and
But
then
it functioned very differently than the Beatles.
because he started, I think he started getting overwhelmed with what he was getting himself into.
Yeah.
And so he started developing this stage fright, where just like, look, I can't do this anymore. I have to step back, and you guys go out and play the tour. That's fine. I'll just write the material. I'll arrange the songs. I'll get it all on tape. We'll have that will be my new job. You don't need me up there. I don't like being up there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm taller than all you guys, and I look like a dork, and
Well,
you guys are all cool. He got to the point where he just I can't do that part.
Well, that's interesting. We're talking about Sly and Brian Wilson because, Brian was never this charismatic guy, performer, but they both wound up being recluses. And that's pretty fascinating, especially with Sly being able to hold an entire room in the palm of his hand, and then being a guy who just wanted to live in an RV and be out of the public eye.
Mm.
You know, it's sad, but certainly I think there's diagnosable. I think Brian Wilson was diagnosed with like schizoaffective disorder, which is, it's like you've got elements of schizophrenia. Like in psychology, there are, we talk about positive symptoms and negative symptoms.
Mm.
Positive is where you have like extrasensory stuff, like you're hearing voices and things like that. You know, negative symptoms would be like, you know, ultra depressed or catatonic, you know. And so schizoaffective disorder is when you have those elements of schizophrenia and then bipolar on top of that. I mean, fortunately, those things can be medicated. I think Sly probably had sort of cluster A stuff, possibly paranoid personality disorder.
Okay, so he goes up.
Gets a typo.
He
disorder.
like disappears for a while. He actually disappeared from the scene for about 10 years after a string of successes with the band.
Yeah.
He comes back on the scene with a new band. I forget what he called the new band, but it wasn't a very imaginative name and it wasn't a very imaginative band. But they came on Letterman and played a song, and he's wearing, you know, like jogging pants and a hoodie, and he looks pretty normal, you know, just like
He's back.
but all the sparks flying off of him were gone. And he,
Oh, interesting.
but not in a bad way. He wasn't like depressed or blah blah blah. He was just
Yeah.
like, okay, the guy's dried out for a few years, and this is like what he's the more normal dude Sly,
Yeah, yeah,
where he's just
yeah.
contained.
And probably more grown up.
Probably,
more
yeah,
mature.
yeah. So he
Middle-aged
gets
Sly.
so he gets up and they're performing a Sly and the Family Stone song, an older song. They're performing it, and it's pretty uninspiring all over,
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
However, the Letterman band like starts joining in.
Oh, like Will Lee and
It was
Sid on guitar.
no, it was before him. Anton Fig probably
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
No, it was Steve Jordan was playing drums.
Oh,
And
still
it-
the band
and
with Hiram.
Hiram Bullock
Fucking
playing guitar.
Hiram. Will Lee and Stephen. Oh my God.
Yeah, that band.
Look out.
They start getting into
Yeah,
it.
that's who should be
and
back
then
in Sly.
you see Sly, the old Sly coming back out. He's, you know, that personality just starts
Yeah.
expressing itself. And what happens? Entire audience up on their feet, right?
Wow.
At that point, you can see where the Sly thing is kicking in. And
Yeah.
the minute that happens, he starts heading towards the audience and they're all up on their feet.
Yeah.
And that was his special gift. He just tapped into everybody that he was performing to and let them know, I want you on my ride with me.
Mm,
And he really put that out there.
wow. Compare Wilson to Sid. I don't know enough about Sid. Do you know much about him?
Who?
Pink Floyd.
I don't think he got a chance to really develop as an artist enough for there to be a comparison. I mean,
I truly don't know. I have nothing to say of any substance.
he started going off the rails very early
Yeah.
in their career. So who knows what he would have been capable of.
Yeah.
But you know, God, who knows? No, I wouldn't even want to pretend I have an idea about that. But I think Dennis Wilson was like a Beethoven, a guy that heard
Brian Wilson?
everything
Yeah.
already complete up here. He wasn't composing as he was going. He was trying to get people to play it how he heard it already done.
Sure.
And
All right. Favorite Brian Wilson tune? We talked about Sly. Do you have a favorite Beach Boys song?
In My Room is one of my all-time favorites.
That's the one. That is the one. It's all over for me.
I mean, when you think
song.
about it, he's like doing doo-wop.
Yeah.
You know,
The Del Shannon chords.
the Del Shannon bit, barbershop quartet,
Mm-hmm.
and throwing some classical music shit on top of it.
Yeah.
And he's on input. He's absorbing everything. So Carol Kay is probably playing a part and saying something like, if I just do this instead of that, and she would make just like a little rhythmic change in something,
Yeah.
and it would totally transform what she was playing.
Yeah.
And all she would have to do is go, what about something like this? And you can just see him going, that's what I was looking for, or that's what I was trying to tell you, or some, they would connect. He would do that with Hal Blaine too. There's Hal did a couple of interviews where he talked about,
Hal was on that track.
yeah,
I don't think he played drums. I think he played percussion, but he's on In My Room.
where
That song is interesting because, like, I think the intro is like 1625 changes, which is like the most standard shit in the world, especially for that time period. Actually, my grandfather used to call those, I guess, so my grandfather was a professional musician. He was in this band called Something Smith and the Redheads, and they had, I think, like the number 7 or number 8 top hit in the country in 1958 or something. But he said that the musicians of that time period would call 1625. Those were Cantor chords, like Eddie Cantor.
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
Eddie Cantor?
Mhm.
Because every freaking Eddie Cantor song was that.
Mm.
So In My Room starts off with that. And you're like, okay, whatever. And then the song begins. And it's like, holy shit. Like, I don't know if there's anything non-diatonic in there because I haven't heard it in a long time, but it's so interesting. Like the changes are so cool. No. Actually, the second chord I think is like a flat 7. So like a modal interchange thing, but like immediately the Del Shannon kind of guitar part, but then the harmony is like, oh, whoa, we're dealing with like somebody who has an advanced ear.
And
Except he
imagine-
was 17.
imagine that he's in a room with brothers and cousins,
Yeah.
and they aren't really singers and they can't really sing, and he corrals these guys and look, okay, we're going to turn this into a vocal group, and here's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You just sing this note. Okay, now you come over here and you put this note on top of it. And they're just like going, they're clueless.
Yeah.
And then when they hear
Come on,
themselves,
try it again.
when they hear themselves actually realize it and do it, then they're starting to think, oh, I'm a singer now. No, you're not. You've got this, you're a puppet. And the puppet master is pulling the strings. And I think that was like the dichotomy between him and Carl is was it Carl? No, Mike Love. The thing
Oh.
between Brian Wilson and Mike Love was Mike Love got all full of himself because I'm the lead singer
Yeah.
in the fabulous vocal group, the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And he starts like, well, now that you've made me what I am, I'm going to start telling you how we're going to do things. That was my impression of Mike Love, is that he was
I think he's still like that.
probably still is. He has to know that none of that would have happened if Brian Wilson wasn't there. None of that would have happened for any of them. And you know who was actually one of the better singers in the band was Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
He actually had
Wasn't
a
he
voice.
the drummer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, there were a bunch of guys that they were doing what we did as kids when we started playing. I want to play the guitar. I want to play the drums because you can just hit them and
Yeah.
make a
But
noise.
we already have a guitar player.
Okay,
We
I'll
need
play
drums. Go sit over there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we
Sure.
well, Bobby wants to play guitar, so Brian, you play bass.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they all like we all take our paper route money and we go, and Brian goes and gets a bass, and I get a guitar. My brother's going to be the drummer, but he can't keep a beat, so we switch and he becomes a rhythm guitar player and I start playing drums. And
That's a funny thing. The Van Halen brothers were like that.
yeah,
They
and
started
the
Flip.
Beach Boys were like that. They
Yeah.
were just a bunch of knuckleheads that all kind of like, hey, let's go play some parties and stuff. And then
Rock and roll is cool.
all of a sudden the seed of genius in Brian Wilson starts coming out.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming.
And what does he do? Does he like just dispatch everybody and go, I'm just going to go be Brian Wilson and I'm going to go find some real singers? No. He's just like, I can chisel a diamond out of this
Yeah,
pile of coal in the backyard.
yeah, yeah.
That's my impression of Brian Wilson. He had all the tools already in his little satchel. So he could do that with anybody. He had the best players in the industry, and he had all my knucklehead brothers and cousins that are all
Yeah, who
like-
were into being the rock stars. Okay, you can go out and do the thing live.
and they would
I'm
they
gonna
would
stay
kick
here
and
making the records.
kick and scream and resist and stuff. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's like, yeah, Brian knows. Brian knows what's going on. And
I think about it as, it's the kids who, playing around in summer, you have, 7 kids in the neighborhood and you have the one, like, we're going to put on a play. And there's the one who kids, okay, you're going to stand over there. You're
Right,
going to go over there.
exactly.
No, you get over there. No. Okay, you pick up the twigs and then, okay, you put the crown on and like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, I have
don't
the whole
want-
story up here. Please just follow the directions.
I don't want to
know what
wear. I don't want to wear the crown. I want to hold the twig. Okay, you wear the crown and you hold the twig.
I don't care.
Didn't matter.
Whoever's wearing the crown, you got to go over there.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing. Just, yeah. Yeah. Well,
I hate to say this, but Bill Cosby did a bit about all the kids in the neighborhood getting together, where the one kid that knew how to play baseball,
yeah.
they're huddling on the street to play stickball, and so the guy that knows what's going on, he's like telling everybody what to do, and he's got a pebble and a piece of glass and a bottle cap and stuff, and he's putting it on the ground to tell everybody what their position is going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's explaining to him, and one of the guy goes, okay, so Bobby, you're the piece of glass. I don't want to be the piece of glass. I want to be the beer bottle cap. It's just like, it's the same dynamic.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard that. I don't want to be the piece of glass. I rolled on the floor.
That's funny.
And of course, let's see. I'm going to dig this up because you asked me a question about it.
You asked for it.
Um,
Guys, we're going to answer some questions in a minute.
no, we're not. We're going to have some fun talking about brilliant people.
Steve
so-
says he's not going to answer questions
Yeah.
in a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna pay
He's going to be a
homage.
malcontent.
We're gonna pay serious homage to people that really like formed. Okay, so In My Room came out in '64.
Oh, I
Right.
thought it was 63.
It says The Beach Boys, In My Room, 1964. Written by it was released. It says released on their '63 album Surfer Girls. So you're right. Something else in here said it on '64, but he co-wrote that with Gary Usher.
Right.
And
Family friend.
huh?
Family friend.
Huh.
Like all those knuckleheads.
And so that made me 10 years old when that came out. And what was I doing during that time? We had moved into a bigger house and I had my own bedroom and it had 2 closets in it, and one had clothes, and the other one I turned into a lab.
You were in your room.
I was in my
In my
room in
room.
this little sequestered
Oh, that's awesome.
second thing that I turned into a little workshop, and I would set fire to shit and like plug stuff into the wall and blow fuses in the house and stuff, and nobody bothered me. And I sat in there and played with electricity and just I was in my room. And when I
Yeah.
heard that song, I went, "This is a song about me."
If you get
It
it,
really
you get it.
wasn't, because I don't know, I was 10, so I wasn't in love. I didn't have a girlfriend. I wasn't thinking along those lines. I was just in my little world.
I
And
think
it
that's
was a
really
great
what the
little,
song means.
it was a
you know?
great little world.
Yeah.
And I could sit in there. I could go in there after school and stay there until it was time to go to sleep. And I didn't need to go watch TV with the family. I didn't need to go out and play touch football with my brother, or I didn't need to do any of that. I could just stay up there for days if I didn't have to get up and go to school, or get up on Sunday morning to go to church. If I didn't have to do all that
I'm
stuff, I
still
could
like
just
that.
stay locked up in there
Yeah.
for
I'm still
hours
like
and
that.
days. So
Yeah.
that song really stuck with me. But uh when Good Vibrations came out, I thought it was a corny ass song. And when that came out, that was what, 68?
Yeah. It was psychedelic
Can
era.
you
It was
imagine
psychedelic Beach
making
Boys.
the transition from In My Room in 64 to 4 years later, you're doing Good Vibrations? That is an eternity of musical development and progress. That is just a remarkable shift. But I thought it was a corny song.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got a little older and understood what the musicians were doing that then
There's
I
a lot
really,
of corniness in
uh,
the Beach Boys. But when you look under the hood, you're like, oh my God.
it's the mechanical stuff that's going on, and you see
Yeah.
how everything is constructed. Then you go, and now I listen to it. Whenever
That's
I
the
listen
baddest
to
ass corny jam.
when I listen to some of that stuff now, some of the stuff on Pet Sounds, I listen to it and I
Oh.
go, I don't even know how one human being had the attention span to get that composition all put together that way.
Mm.
When you listen to the breakdowns and even the from the 68 to the 70s, it still had this, I mean, the intense harmony, the intense structure of the harmonies.
Yeah.
And I would listen to that and I go, that is some motherfucking construction job. But when it was all complete and you listen to it as a whole, it still reminded me of Barbershop Quartet. It still had that
Yeah.
quality
Yeah.
of where it came from. The roots of it still had this, you hear, in modern vocal groups, especially women vocal groups,
Mhm.
where somebody's singing, it's a girl
Mm-hmm.
that's in the group
Yeah.
singing the baritone part, and you hear that Brian Wilson Barbershop Quartet, that low note kind of ascending and matching up with the other higher notes into a new chord structure. It's that same thing. You just hear it all kind of go like this. It twists and turns, and then it all locks together at this crescendo.
Yeah.
And a lot of the pop R&B music done by African American artists, girl groups that are good vocal groups, they do all it's all built on that same kind of structure. It's intense. But he does it all with a bunch of goofballs and makes a historic statement with it. It's just like fantastic.
You just
But
happen to
still,
live.
when I listen to that, when I hear a baritone like slide up, make this legato rise and match with these other things, it's just like that old. I just have the visual of the 4 guys in the striped jacket with that paste hat thing with the ribbon around the top of it, the Barbershop Quartet thing. You just hear that, just that exact mechanical structure.
Yeah.
That musical mechanical structure.
Yeah.
And I just listen to that every time I hear that in the most strangest of circumstances. You know, the kinds of music, the what the song is about, and the structure of it, and the painstaking way that it's all meticulously assembled until it's just perfection all the way from top to bottom. That was an awful lot of work to structure what is pretty much a kind of like a simple tragic love song or something like that. It's just mind-blowing. That's the work of the genius, that it isn't about the end result, it's all about the journey. I think that there's a close correlation to Sly Stone in the same way. He they're just getting ripped high all the time. They're partying day and night. They're playing gigs. They're getting money thrown at them. They're rock stars. They go play Woodstock. They tear the fucking place apart at 9 o'clock in the morning, the second to the last day or something. And can you imagine waking up 200,000 people with music like that? All right, before you eat breakfast, we're going to play you the most intense funk music you ever heard.
You know, there's this, you're a Hendrix fan, you've seen the Isle of Wight, right? When I was a kid watching the Isle of Wight, it scared me because I knew the end of the story. I knew Jimmy died.
Shortly after that.
Yeah. Less than 2 months later. And he looked so unhealthy. He looked so exhausted. I think the last song of the set is In From the Storm. And he's not even facing the audience. He's like, you're Billy Cox. He's just facing you like it's. And then at the end of the song, he lifts up his guitar. He doesn't even put it down. He just drops it. And it would scare me because he was my hero. But it's like, oh no, he's almost dead. And then in the early days of the internet, when people were, what's the name of that website? Dime a Dozen. People would upload bootleg stuff. And I could get all of this Hendrix bootleg stuff that, you know, I'd heard about forever. And there was like proto VHS video. Seriously, it was VHS, like the very first VHS cameras. The gig that Jimmy did right after the Isle of Wight, I think it was actually in Sweden, and it was like on some fairgrounds. And it's like a battery operated thing, so the power is bad. So like even the original copy, like the video is really, really bad. But like I know what Jimmy looked like in the gig like the day before, and he was dead. And you see him out on the stage, and he's got wedge monitors like up on a stand aimed at his ear, and you can tell like enough from the quality of the sound, like the SPLs aimed at him were about to kill him. And it was just scary shit, you know? So like that time period that we're talking about, like these guys are ripped around the clock.
Right.
There's zero discipline. It's all about art, you know, staying high and in that vibe and
nobody ever
music.
said, yeah, we don't go on stage high. Nobody ever said that.
Yeah. Because you got to do a good show. It's like, no, it's all vibe.
In fact, when they didn't get high and go on stage, that's what that Sweden. Ever see the Hendrix experience in Sweden?
Oh, in '69.
In '69,
when he's like, we haven't played in like 6 weeks, so we're just gonna fuck around.
Yeah.
And the black and white. It's black. Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody interviewed the bass player
Noel.
Somebody interviewed Redding, and they said, "What was that about?" And he said, "Well, we couldn't get any drugs. It was really tight there. We couldn't smuggle any drugs in, and nobody had anything there. So they were all like crashing and angry, and edgy and pissed off. And they didn't have their crutch.
Yeah.
And you know they're shooting visual daggers at each other, and you can see it. You know,
when I'm not stoned,
Hendrix comes in and he fumbles it and plays Red House on the wrong chord, And he's mad at Noel Redding because he thinks Redding made the mistake, and Redding is looking at him like, "No, you."
And it's such a drag because it's awesome footage, but it's a bad show.
It's a
It's
bad
not a
show,
good show.
and Hendrix is. You can hear him talking shit to the audience.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He
uh,
was good at that too.
yeah. He would say, yeah, yeah. He
You can
would do
stand
his,
up and you can
do
clap,
you-
or if you don't want to,
yeah,
well, fuck
yeah.
you.
He did his little
So,
humble,
fuck you.
yeah. Excuse me a minute while I tune my guitar, and he mutters under his breath on the microphone like you wouldn't know the difference anyway. You know? And I went, wait,
No.
what was that? And I played it back over and over again, and I went, oh man.
Scott's talking about Frank Zappa.
Hmm.
It's probably the one band of that time period that were like straight edge, because you couldn't play Zappa music if you were high.
He would not. There was no. Yeah,
You were
he-
done. You're
You
done.
did not get high in
Yeah.
Zappa's band and go
Yeah.
on and perform.
You couldn't.
You could.
There's no way. I mean, that's head music. you
Yeah,
know? It's
yeah.
not vibey ways. We're gonna jam on one chord for 7 minutes. You know.
Yeah, that's really trippy because when you listen to him, Frank Zappa band trying to do something on the fly, trying to improvise, trying to just like lay back and do whipping post, it still sounds like they rehearsed it 85 times with Frank Zappa cracking the whip over everybody. It still
Yeah.
has that same. It does not have the vibe of whipping post. Whipping post sounds like a construction project
Right, yeah.
compared to the
Yeah,
Allman Brothers
yeah.
doing whipping post.
Yeah. What was I just gonna say?
It has this
Frank
built-in
Zappa.
sort of understated sarcasm in it, and even the interviewers like, "Why did you do whipping post?" You know, because it's not a good version. It's just like like you say, it's this big conflagration of stuff going on to make something that sort of sounds like whipping post. And so I can imagine the interview going, "Why do you play whipping post?" And he's like, "Because it's a good song."
Oh,
Why not?
Oi.
I like the song.
oi!
Yeah.
Fuck off!
What's your point?
Oh man, yeah. You know, I remember reading an interview with Carlos Santana, and he was talking about no one in rock had discipline in that era, and he was saying, "I'm fortunate, you know, because in '72 or '73, he was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. I'm going to India. I'm gonna get clean. I'm gonna start hanging out with John McLaughlin, wearing white. Like, I'm gonna purify myself." And he says, if I didn't find discipline in my spiritual path, I would have been dead just like Jimmy. That's the only reason he didn't make it out, because none of us had discipline during those years. It was all everything
Yeah.
all day long. And even the management was like, hey, you're being creative and we're making money off you. Here, open up. You know, here's
Yeah,
more. Here's
yeah,
more, you know?
yeah.
Just keep it going. Keep it going.
And the management are doing it too.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's where all your budget's going. That's where your money's all going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. Didn't we make like $2 million this year? Yeah, it all went up everybody's nose. Everybody's, including ours. The management, the record company, the chauffeur,
That's the whole thing.
the
with,
airline pilots.
you know, with Hendrix and Michael Jeffries, you know, when Chaz Chandler was out of the picture and Mike Jeffries was running the show, like when you look at the tour itineraries, it was like the dumbest shit in the world. Like crisscrossing, like just talk about, you know, what do you call it? Like killing the golden goose.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
You know what struck me just now though? I'm listening to you, but I'm also thinking about that time, and I'm also thinking about these sort of the different kind of personality types that are Brian Wilson and Sly Stone. It's like Brian Wilson, very soft spoken, very introverted, you know, shy, and oh, you know, I just
No charisma. He's
No.
not a performer.
when Sly opened his mouth to talk, you listened. He had this beautiful baritone speaking voice. And when he was coherent and said something, you listened because he really spoke with conviction.
Well, he was a radio DJ before he was Sly Stone.
Yeah. He
You know, the
had this.
performer.
He had the DJ voice.
You know, welcome to Hot 97.
Yeah, and he's telling you what's up.
Yeah, yeah.
And he sounded like he knew what the fuck was up. Even if he didn't, he sounded like he did. He really came across as focused and self-aware, and not, I'm sure behind the scenes, things got crazier as they went along, but
Yeah.
I think that he really did have focus, and he knew what he was shooting for. He had a vision, and he knew what he was shooting for, and he knew how to talk to people to get them to go along. And when I listen to him talk, I just go, he's a pretty phenomenal voice.
Mm.
You listen to him sing, if you listen to him strictly as a vocalist, it's like, he's got this really interesting way of covering up the fact that he's not a very good singer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The same way he sounds like when he plays guitar, he doesn't sound like a very good guitar player if you're taking it apart, if you're just disassembling it like I would do when I'm listening to something really closely. I go, that was a weird thing to play, but it didn't come across.
Listen to In Time.
It didn't come
Those
across as
guitar parts
weird.
are nonsense.
When it was all put together, it came across as that they were obviously intending to do that. But he sure went about it in kind of odd ways. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter if he was sloppy or out of tune or played a funky note, or technically he kind of had this ratty, crackling voice when he was trying to sing phrases and stuff. His charisma just sort of papered over all
Some
of that.
people are like that, and some people are like that who are actually spectacular singers too. But the way they deliver is so steeped in vibe. Like Prince could be like that.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell what he's saying, but it's so fucking badass. D'Angelo's like that. Voodoo, that whole album, like you can't really tell what he's singing a lot, but it's so bad ass. I mean, he's a phenomenal singer.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that, and Sly, in a way, might have been an originator of that kind of thing. It's not enunciating. It's just it's so funky and dripping.
I was thinking that when we were going to have this conversation of what is it about him that it sounds like he's doing everything wrong, but it sounds, but not only
do it again.
Not only is it do it again, but it got everybody else to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the guy that started doing that thing that people associate that with Stevie Wonder originating that. But I think Stevie Wonder got it from Sly.
Yeah.
Because he started doing that sort of growling, changing his personality with the sound of his voice thing. He didn't do that before.
Yeah.
He was a more of a strict R&B, beautiful voice.
Yeah. Stevie.
He reinvented himself around that Sly sort of style.
Yeah.
And,
Well, when he was able to start like making his own records,
yeah, he had to break
in the
free.
early '70s, and
He had
like
to
I'm
break free
producing much,
from
I'm playing everything on these records
Right.
almost. Yeah. Oh my God, Stevie Wonder. That's another guy. We talked the entire episode. All right, I'm gonna force you to take some questions. This is for you. If you could find a trove of one amp component you can't get anymore, what would it be?
Wow, that's a good question.
The vaunted.
I'll tell you what's good about that question. I go out of my way to not get caught up in that mentality.
I know you do. I was going to bring up the capacitor rigging that you made so that you could compare everything on the market to go, there's got to be something that's comparable. Let's really see and be able to switch. Is that thing here anymore? Or is that,
Not at the shop.
we showed it
No,
on the
no,
show
it might be
notes.
here.
Very cool. But anyway,
Yeah,
your thing is like, you don't want to get hung up on that.
that's what people do.
Yeah, I do.
They get hung up on that. Like, oh, I'd like to get, boy, if I could get my hand on 500 of those germanium KO293s. I'm just throwing out a number. I'm making it up. Um,
Some people might hold you to it.
yeah, they will, definitely. That's why I make it a point to,
There's no such thing, you idiot.
because somebody will, if I say what the actual part is, somebody is going to go out there and say, Steve Ryan
That's
said
not the
he'd like
good
to have
one.
100
Yeah.
of those, and no. The people that invented, the pioneers, they invented the stuff that we associate with the legendary stuff upon which everything else is built. They associate that origination with it's got to all be done that way, and they're the people that turn that into dogma. And then there's the people out there that want to sell you the thing that is based on that dogma.
Yeah.
They're not doing it because they think that that's the only way to do it. They're doing that because they think that's the way they can get you to open your wallet. And I guess the only thing that I can think of is, see, here's the other part of the other twist in that question is all of those things are available still. Whatever you think with this thing that I can't get anymore, you can get it. You just have to buy enough of it so that somebody will make it.
Mm.
And in a lot of cases, there isn't a big enough market to produce that in the quantities that would make it available and affordable on a regular basis. When every TV and radio that everybody was buying to bring home, to put in their house, in their work, in their car, whatever, when all of that used vacuum tubes, then any aspect of a vacuum tube that you needed to get made for a particular application, you could do, because there were millions and millions of customers for it. So these days, there are certain kind of capacitors that are no longer available because nobody needs them anymore. There are better ways or alternate ways to do what was done with these earlier iterations of these components. There's better materials now for capacitors, for films and foils and construction and insulation and chemical compounds that are environmentally friendly and all these kinds of things. They're different. They do the same basic job, but they do it differently. So I don't want to get hung up on the dogma of the only thing that will make a good amp sound like a really good amp is to do it the way that nobody does it anymore, because then the audience gets limited, the amount that you can produce goes down, and the cost goes up, and the only thing that you did was paint yourself into a corner. So if there's anything that I could think of that isn't available anymore, one component, it would be a certain thickness of the lamination steel used in output transformers. Because you can get,
Look,
you can get
what Scott said,
kind
of in response to that.
yeah, well, the high watt output transformers, the original Partridge transformers, the thickness of the laminations in those transformers is just a fraction of an inch thinner than the standard lamination thickness that you buy now that everybody makes.
Mm.
At the time those transformers were made, there were 3 different measurement standards in the Western world that Western manufacturing companies use. There was the metric system, the imperial system, and the BS system, British standard. So there's metric nuts and bolts and screws. There were imperial nuts and bolts and screws, and there were British standard nuts and bolts and screws, and they were all slightly different. Those chrome input jacks that everybody uses, including us, on the input jacks of amplifiers because they look cool. They are mostly a metric size that is compatible with an imperial size. And so a standard metric tool will work on those, and an imperial, wrench or socket size will work on those. But there was the original ones that you find on Marshalls were British standard, and they were kind of in between imperial and metric.
Oh, interesting.
And they didn't. And I found this out because we had a really good Snap-on tool representative a long time ago when Snap-on was still making regularly deliveries by guys in trucks coming, and they only dealt with mechanics.
Okay.
They didn't go to electronic shops.
Yeah.
They just went to mechanics and sold them tools. And they weren't even allowed to go to any other businesses. They were supposed to only go to mechanics.
Huh.
But I wanted to use Snap-on tools, and I wanted to buy them regularly, and we were starting to increase our production, and we could afford those tools. And we just found a guy that he went to a repair shop that was down the street from where our factory was, and I said, I'll buy stuff from you regularly if when you go down to see so and so, if you just like drop by and check in with me. I'm always looking for some cool thing. And
Yeah.
he's like going, well, I'm not really supposed to do that, but since you're so close to the other guy, yeah, I'll do that. So I set up an account with him, and because he was great and he knew his shit, and so we ended up building up this extensive stash of oddball Snap-on tools, some of which we still have. A lot of them they've discontinued, but I remember one time that I found a new old stock stash of the kind of input jacks that were used on original Marshalls.
Yeah.
And high watts.
Yeah.
And so I saw him one day, and I said, look, I got these nuts, and I don't have a metric nut that will fit it, and I don't have an imperial nut socket that'll fit it. And he goes, oh, that's odd. Let me have a look at it. He goes into his truck, and he's trying all these things. And then I heard him go, BS. And I went out to his truck, and I said, what's up? And he goes, BS. And I go, what? He goes, British standard. He was mad. And he goes, it's a British standard. That's why I couldn't find the metric equivalent. It's a British standard.
Yeah.
And I go, what's that? And he goes, well, I just happen to have a couple of British standard sockets. Let me check. He pulls a drawer open, he pulls one out, and it exactly fits this nut.
Wow.
And I still have that one to this day. We hardly ever use it, but I have it. And I still have that stash
Yeah.
of nuts. I didn't want to use them except on a really special project, because anybody that tried to take them off and replace them or put them on, they wouldn't be able to get
Right.
replacement parts.
Yeah.
And they would scuff them all up using the wrong tool to put them on and take them off and all that. So I just set them aside for some project someday. And it's just the kind of project that I won't do using them, because then I'll be up a creek when somebody needs to replace it. The lamination thing, though, is if you have laminations in the transformer stacked up to a certain height, that's the height. And the reason that you have laminations is because you're trying to create a block of steel out of thin sheets of steel so that you get this magnetic field of a certain size, but you need to reduce the eddy currents that flow around in a big chunk of steel. So you slice it into little thin slices and you alternate them as you stack them up, you alternate
make
them
them
so that
diffused.
cancels out
Yeah.
these little eddy currents and
Yeah.
things like that. That's why they're made. So if you have more laminations in a stack, it will reduce that eddy current behavior a little bit more. It's not critical that you have them, and you can still make a transformer that behaves exactly like a high watt partridge output transformer with the standard ones. And of course, somebody is going to say, well, that's the reason that you can't make a real partridge, because you can't get those laminations anymore. And I've heard people say that. But that's really only part of the story, because the real partridge transformer has got these real bizarre little subwindings that are in there to cancel out distributed capacitance and things like that that nobody really cares about anymore. It's not important enough to really design the transformer that specifically to deal with that specific little issue.
Yeah.
You can deal with it in feedback. You can deal with it in different grades of steel. You can deal with it in a lot of different ways. So you don't really need to make this basically unmanufacturable output transformer anymore. So the companies like Haybor that are making a clone of the partridge transformer are making it close enough that if you're just bolting together a high watt clone with whatever you think are the modern equivalents of mustard caps,
Right.
and all of that, you could end up with a really raspy, funky sounding high watt clone. And some of the ones that I've heard are exactly that. And it's
to leave people going, why do people like these?
Yeah, and it's not because, and they're going to say, well, it's because we can't get those original laminations anymore, and that'll be BS. So there's a part of me that, yeah, it would be cool to actually have those available off the shelf so that I could build a transformer with it, and then, like you said, build a rig,
Yeah.
a jig, so that we could analyze it and see.
I think would be the reason why.
That would be the reason I would want to
because
have that.
I would think that,
But
knowing you,
I don't want to buy 100,000 of them just to get 50 to try.
but I feel like, your ethos is not digging through the embers of the old fire that has almost gone out from the amazing tones and work the artists did in generations gone by. You're like, I'm exist in 2025. I'm building in 2025.
Right.
I'm making the best possible product I can in 2025. It's not about trying to recreate the things that these other people were able to do in a state of grace in 1972, 1971, 1967, whatever. Because really what people want when they're doing that is like, I want to sound like Electric Ladyland. It's like, you're never going to sound that way anyway, because you're not Jimi fucking Hendrix.
Yeah.
If you can take what's available now and make your mark now with what's available now.
Whether
right?
a lamination is 40,000th of an inch thick or
Gives a shit.
50,000th of an inch thick, you're still not going
And you want to know something? Jimi Hendrix would not give a rat's ass about that either.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's like we were talking about earlier with, a lot of those funk bands. It wasn't about the tone fetish, the tone quest. It was about, we're going to make some music that knocks people on their ass. Like whatever's in the back line, okay, whatever.
But I worked in a music store during those times, and in Seattle, and there were a couple of really big Pacific Northwest funk bands that were killer musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And the guitar player had the Barney Castle, with all the gold hardware. They always had
bling.
They always had the
Make it
top
pop,
top shit. And they wanted, like, one of my buddies who was the guitar player in one of those bands, he just wanted he wanted the Barney Kessel because it was the most expensive one. I'm making enough money I can buy that guitar now. My uncle had that guitar. He taught me how to play on it. Now I can afford one, a brand new one.
Yeah.
You know.
Scott just had a great
And
thought.
a lot of those guys, they just wanted the top latest shit. And it wasn't about it was the best sounding or had this special sort of kind of overdrive. No, it was just the latest, greatest bling encrusted cool. You know, it's got that big horn on the top. It's got the horn.
Yeah.
I actually had a switch on a prototype amp I made one time that when you pulled it, it gave you more distortion, and I named it Extortion.
Oh yeah.
Because the
I saw
guitar
that.
player, because the guitar player once told me, I want to get that cabin with the horns in it because it gets the extra extortion that way. And I just cracked up, and he
Yes,
was
it
just like,
does.
he
Yes,
was
it
just
does.
serious about, I want the cat. Nobody wants the cab with the horn anymore. It sounds like a honky hunk of shit. But at that time, that was like the icing on the cake.
You know what? You're gonna be heard if you
Yeah.
sound like that. You're gonna be heard.
I was just listening to Quicksilver Messenger Service video the
yeah.
other day.
John
And when
Cipollina.
Cipollina hit that certain note with
Hell
the
yeah.
wah, you would just hear that ring in the horn that he was using. It wasn't even a note. The horn was creating its own oscillation frequency
Yeah,
that was that.
it was going
You
through
hear it. You hear it in his playing on Quicksilver Messenger records, where he's playing this
Exactly what you're
high
playing.
note, and he doesn't do the vibrato with his fingers. He does it
No,
with
the Bigsby.
does it with
on
the big
SG,
B,
yeah.
but there's this annoying whistle on the top of it, and that's coming from the horn ringing at a frequency that designer never intended to come out of that thing, but you would only be able to get that using a humbucker into a wah-wah pedal, into a clean solid state amp, or even a super clean tube amp running through that horn at that volume. It does this big piercing
Yeah.
ring. It's like, stop that. I
Man, he's a
hated the
great
sound
player.
of their records because of that little ringing sound.
But you would hear him.
But you heard
You
it.
would hear
You
it.
heard it for blocks away.
Oh, yeah.
What were you saying
all
about-
through Golden Gate Park? Oh, Scott was just quoting. He's a famous producer said there are no bad sounds, only bad applications. And
Yeah.
we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I really think so.
That Dave Jordan
Yeah.
was a real proponent of that.
R.I.P.
He could take anything. He'd take any piece of horse dropping off the street and turn it into something. Him and Eno. He told me stories about him and Eno. You know, like Eno was sampling sounds, and Dave's engineering chair at El Dorado had this squeak when you leaned back, and Eno
I didn't know
sampled.
Eno worked with Dave Jordan. Interesting.
Yeah, he did. He did Talking Heads. Jordan did Talking Heads, and Eno was involved in that.
I
And Eno
registered with me.
Eno sampled the squeak in Dave's chair and played it on a keyboard.
I've
That's the
watched
kind of
some,
crazy shit he got involved in.
some recent interviews with Brian Eno, and man, I really like that guy. Okay, here's another question, kind of random, but please say something about the Screamers. Were you here when they were happening?
Yeah. I did. They had just
Did you
had the-
know them, or
I didn't. I
oh,
didn't.
okay?
They,
I
but
don't
they,
know much about them
But
at
they
all.
had the best poster. They had
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah,
They had the best graphics.
yeah.
I didn't know that much about it. There were so many out there bands in that era. There was the Leaping Caucasians. There were just all kinds of bands that you've never heard of that were in the punk scene at that time.
The Screamers were L.A. though, right?
Yeah,
I
Screamers.
got that right. Okay.
And Leaping Caucasians were this really obscure punk band in LA. And then there was a friend of mine who was in more of an art rock.
Would they all
punk
play
rock
at
band.
Madame Wong's?
Yeah, we all played at Madame Wong's and Al's Bar, and there was another couple of places that were kind of art hangs that you could play music.
There
if
was
you were-
overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there was the Juju Hounds. A friend of mine was the drummer in the Juju Hounds, and he also played with Nina Hagen,
Oh,
who was a
wow.
twisted. She was so twisted.
Wow, cool.
I was with a few people, and one of the girls we were with, we went to this club and saw them, and this girl and Nina comes out of the dressing room, and this girl goes, "That was really awesome." And Nina Hagen is wearing this big party dress, like this 50s style party dress, and she goes, "You want to see something really awesome?" And the girl goes, "Yeah." And Nina pulls her dress up, and she's not wearing any underwear.
Just
At this girl, just puts it in her face, and the girl was just like, just her jaw just dropped, and she was speechless, and she just like, what the hell just happened? And we like fell out. It was, and then she just walks off like nothing had happened.
Wow.
It's like, "You want to see something really awesome?" Whoosh, boom, gone.
Wow.
Just broke this girl's brain for a second. It was hysterical. There was all kinds of crazy stuff there. So who else? The Screamers were playing. They played at. I was more into the pop end of the punk rock thing, so it was more
X,
not necessarily new wave, but kind of in between. And
Fear.
well, Fear was more punk rock. They
Yeah.
were the band that got spit on more than anybody
Yeah.
in all of LA.
Yeah.
When you on the old TVs, when you're in between channels and it's just snow,
That's
that's
their
what it
gigs
looked
look
like
like.
between the audience and the
God.
band at the Whiskey when they played. It
Man.
was just like amazing. But there was the Screamers were in that crowd, and of course, Black Flag, and God, that was all just like a
Pre-Rollins Black Flag. Like by
yeah,
many
yeah. It
years.
was just a high-speed freight train. Just
What a crazy scene.
yeah, it was crazy. But it was, it was really exciting and energetic. So I played at Madame Wong's. The bands I was in mostly played at Madame Wong's.
That's really cool.
And
You
the more
played there.
hardcore punk rock bands played at the Hong Kong Cafe.
Oh, I
And
never
you
got to go to
You
any-
didn't go into the Hong Kong Cafe unless you were just like a full blown. And it was really kind of clicky. You had
Sure.
you had to have the punk look
Oh yeah.
and the clothes torn the right way. They were much more. I thought the punk scene was much more rigid about their.
Well, all those edgy scenes are like that. Like black metal is the most,
Yeah,
like we're.
clicky and
It's so clicky, and
exclusive.
it's so how pure are you in this
yeah,
movement?
yeah.
Like,
And I didn't like that about that part of the
but
scene.
the whole thing is like we're the outsiders, except you're conformist within your outsiderism.
There's that band King Missile.
Oh,
They had that song
yeah.
Detachable Penis. There's
That's them.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
I
there's a
remember that.
hilarious song on that same album that has Detachable Penis on it, where the guy's doing this diatribe about I want to be different, and so I got to wear this certain kind of clothes and cut my hair a certain way so I can be different, just like everybody else.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
fucking
yeah,
great. That
yeah.
was killer.
yeah. I might be the only guy at my high school who looks like this, but I go downtown to my scene and I look like everyone else.
Yeah.
I got my green hawk going. I got my, my safety pin through my,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah. Crazy.
So-
Bates is saying the Screamers didn't have any guitars. So were they electronic? What was the Screamers thing? Oh, King Missile.
Oh, this is the King Missile record. Yeah.
Hold on, I need to learn a little bit about the Screamers here. I know we're
This is King Missile album. If you ever find it somewhere, it's a cool record. And the song,
oh, how cool. Screamers, a drummer, 2 keyboardists, violinists, female vocalists. Oh man, I gotta check them out actually.
I think the song I'm talking about on the King Missile record is called "Why Are We Trapped."
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jan Hammer is my favorite guitarist who plays keyboards. Yes, totally. Jeff Beck's favorite too. Okay.
I kind of felt sorry for him.
For Jan Hammer?
Yeah,
How come?
He seemed to have an identity crisis. He wanted to sound, he wanted to be a rock,
A
guitar,
rock
a
guitarist.
rock guitarist,
Yeah.
and he was like married to the ARP.
He did all right. He got that guitar going.
Yeah.
He'd be out there, Miami Vice times. He did all right.
Actually, you could hear when he's trying to play like a guitarist on the keyboard, the limitations of the keyboard that wouldn't allow you to bend notes a certain way.
Yeah.
So he had to make up these sort of transitions on the keyboard. And then you heard Jeff Beck playing his kind of
Well,
his
no, it was
the way
Jan
he
Hammer
was,
had the pitch bend bar, and Beck went, "Oh, I'm gonna do that."
he
Like
figured
the
out how to do
absolute
it on
pitch
the
bend.
guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. With that, the dominant pentatonic scale,
Right.
all those little half step quick bends. Yeah, like there's what's the Jeff Beck group live? There's this intro. It's just Jan Hammer and drums. It's
Hmm.
probably Michael Narada Walden on drums, I think. It's so badass. Jan Hammer sounds amazing on that. You guys would know. But yeah, I'm gonna check out the Screamers for sure. I know we need to get out of here in a minute, but okay, Commodore 64, Apple IIe, or Atari 800. Shit. Atari 2600 for me. Unless the Atari is unless we're talking computers for running early sequencers. I'm thinking video games. I never had any of these. And I'm sure you didn't.
I
either.
didn't even get computer literate until
Are
about
you computer literate?
barely. I think I started using computers when Windows 95 came out.
Oh, okay.
And only because I needed to transition from outsourcing our PCB layout and design to doing it in-house. And you didn't get you didn't get PCB design software in Mac-based computers. It had to be PC-based
Oh,
because
okay.
none of that stuff was written for Mac. So the PC was more like a manufacturing platform,
Mm.
and so yeah, I had to get up to speed on Windows 95, and and yeah, I can see where it would be good if I was more conversant with Apple-based stuff for other things, but I don't go there anyway, so I don't really need that.
Yeah.
So I don't.
First,
First PCB software was PCAD.
PCAD.
Yeah, and I still have it. It was discontinued it's discontinued in 2006. They stopped supporting it in 2000. That around the end of 2006, and then it transitioned to something else. The company that bought all their stuff became Protel, and then Protel got swallowed up by somebody else. And so instead of going through all these transitions and going with OrCAD or pads or all these different variations that the subcontractors were using to make their lives easier, and then Altium was the next iteration of PCAD. What the remnants of PCAD eventually became Altium Designer, and Altium is now so bloated and has so many features and feature sets that I will never have any use for, and a lot of people don't have any use for, but you have to pay through the nose for all the things that you don't need just to get the things that you do want. I stuck with PCAD as long as I possibly could, and all the other things that were supposed to be easier transitions like Protel and Eagle, they weren't easy, and they weren't user friendly, and they were clunky. So I just stayed and crossed my finger and lived on borrowed time with PCAD until I discovered KiCad, which is an open source software, and it's in the process of developing, and it's getting more sophisticated all the time, and it's free. So we've switched over to KiCad, and it's really great because it does 3D as well as Altium Designer, and it does a lot of things as well as Altium Designer, and it doesn't cost $2,500 per user per year in maintenance to keep going. So we, as our company, we've got four people, which means we would need 4 licenses. So that means that we would be paying $10,000 a year in maintenance just to have a software that we only need 20% of, right? So when KiCad came out, I went, all right, well, let's see. This was developed by engineers that work at CERN. So it came with some pretty good recommendations. So I tried it, and it was very user-friendly and really intuitive to learn. And so we transitioned to that. So now what I do is I still use PCAD for the legacy designs because there's no point in translating them at this point into KiCad. Because by the time we went through the whole process of doing that, the product design that was originally done in PCAD will have evolved enough that it's no longer
Right.
in PCAD. It becomes KiCad. It gets translated, part of it gets translated into KiCad, and then all the new libraries are applied to that, and then we keep the schematics in PCAD because we don't really need to translate them out of PCAD into KiCad until we need the intelligence of the schematic and the PCB together in one project file.
Mhm.
So the minute that the project evolves a particular amplifier design or product design, the minute that transitions to the point where all the intelligence in the libraries and the schematic and the PCB talking to each other during the design process, where you can see the board on one screen and the schematic on the other, and
Yeah.
you just click on a component and it shows up on the board. When you need all that intelligence, then a product design makes the full transition to KiCad, because it takes time to do that and
Yeah.
translate the libraries
Yeah.
and do all. It's a lot of work.
And I imagine even when you translate the libraries, you're going to want to go through and double check and make sure things didn't get garbled,
There's like
right?
3 people that have to check those because everybody looks for different things.
Hmm.
Because everybody ties, like leaves their shoes untied a different way, and you trip over stuff, or you overlook a stupid thing. Everybody has a personality when they're doing a
Sure.
design,
Yeah.
when they're using a particular tool. Everybody has a signature, a workflow,
Yeah, I play music for a living, right?
right.
If people open up my sessions,
They go, what the fuck are you trying to do here?"
maybe like I'm not the worst engineer in the world, but I'm not the
Or
best
oh,
either.
you keep really good notes, or
Yeah. Oh, this is clean. Or
Yeah.
sometimes you open a person's session, you're like, what in the fuck is going on in here? You know?
That's what you would find if you looked at any session that I ever did, because I
okay.
have no idea what I'm doing
Uh,
in recording software.
yeah.
I'm just
yeah.
winging it. In fact, I sent Joe Barisi the stems, and I had to figure out what a stem was so I could send it to him, because he asked me to send me the stem to one of the projects that I'd done during COVID when I was learning how to use Studio One Pro, which was the only software I could find that worked well on PC. So I recorded a bunch of tracks and recorded a project in that, and I sent him the stems, and I basically said, you don't have to worry about hurting my feelings. Tell me what you think about this. And he goes, really? This is your first time using a DAW? And I go, yeah. And he goes, geez, I just need to tweak the tempos a little bit in Pro Tools, and you're all done. And I'm like, get out of here.
Actually, I had one of those projects, and you didn't have a bunch of bullshit fluff in there. Like you had done a good job of editing things and exporting only the essentials. So
Really, I thought
Yeah,
it
you
was
did a
just
good
like
job.
loaded with garbage that was useless.
no,
But-
no. Bates is asking this question. Seems like really super open-ended. So what happens with synths and amplification? I don't know if Bates means where's it go from here, or what actually happens in terms of how people are amplifying their synths. I'm not quite sure.
What's the word syncs mean?
Right under it, they wrote synths, like just correcting it. So
What happens? So what happens with synths and amplification?
yeah,
So what happens with synthesizers and
plug
amplifiers?
it in and turn that shit up.
Well, with the synthesizer, you're synthesizing notes. You're playing it on a keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, not having ever been a synthesizer player, I can play piano, and I can sit on a synthesizer and play notes. And when I've done that, I hate everything I did. But the guitar and the amplifier is an instrument. Those two pieces are an instrument.
Well, you know what else is
together.
an instrument? A B3 and amplifier is
A
an
B3
instrument.
and a Leslie are an instrument. Not just an amplifier, but a specific amplifier.
Well, John Lord through Marshall sounds like insanely great. Like, oh,
Right.
that's like peanut butter and
Right.
chocolate. You know?
Right.
I don't know if synthesis is like that, right? Oh,
It-
just describe a good setup. I wouldn't.
See, well, I would
Just put it through the
I
veins.
was that's a tough one. I was in a band with a guy that had a B3 and a Leslie, a traditional B3 and a Leslie.
This is one guy playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he had a little synthesizer that he played, that he used. This was a cover band. So he's got a B3. He's a great B3 player. And he was a really good singer too. And he was a nutcase. I loved him. And he had a synthesizer that he brought along just to play songs that had synthesizer parts in it. So he didn't really give a shit about it. And it sounded really kind of awful.
You just ran it through the PA and the monitors.
Something like
So
that.
you're not like getting amp tone.
Yeah.
You're hearing it on the stage through your monitors.
So when he was playing the B3, he was a monster. And when he was playing through the synthesizer, it was like, would you stop that? That's just painful. I
just
hate
play it on the B3.
Right.
Just play the
So we had another keyboard player. We had like 3 or 4 keyboard players that went through that band. We had another guy that had been touring with some major acts, and he had a B3, same B3 style of B3, but he had these Serwin Vega power amps and speaker cabinets that he was using. It was all hot rodded, and it sounded like a calliope. Didn't sound like an instrument. It was horrible because it didn't have that grinding that a Leslie would have, right?
Yeah.
And he was one of these guys, well, I just need more power. And so Serwin Vega power amps were kind of like the on par with Phase Linear of their day. So really Class AB solid state power amps with 1,000 watts, 500 watts a channel into 4 ohms and stuff. And he had JBLs and the Leslie cabs, and so everything was, really bulletproof. And God, was it painful to listen to.
Yeah.
He was also power mad. And you think I'm cocky? This guy would just like, if he got in a bad mood or he didn't like something, or somebody gave him any shit in the audience, he would just hit the volume pedal and just erase the whole dance floor.
Oh, fun.
Just completely
You got
destroy
really
a
be in a band
room.
with.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he just like used it like a weapon.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound good. Like I said, it sounded like a calliope. You could hear all the instrument sounds too accurately, and it was not pleasant to listen to.
Yeah, and you can think like more analog synthesis. To me, like that would be a good pairing with sometimes with guitar amps.
See, I
But
always
like
think
with
that
FM synthesis, it's like super clean. Like it's gonna need more of like,
I always prefer tube amplifiers because I like the way tube amplifiers and speaker cabinets interact with each other. And if it has to be a higher powered tube amplifier to get a better representation of a soundstage, like a symphony orchestra or something like that, at a big volume, of course, you would need more power. But in in a living room environment to hear a classical composition from an orchestra in the living room. I've got a couple of 60-watt tube monoblocks
Yeah.
and some JBL 4311s, and it's just, you barely turn it on and it sounds huge. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
For synthesizer for performing live, I was in a band, an original band, where we had a girl who was a keyboard player that was a synthesizer player. And she played directly into the PA, and she had this full-blown pedal board.
Yeah.
So she's playing a synthesizer into a guitar pedal board, and she's got a Boss DS1 and delay pedals and phasers and all these kinds of different things.
Howard Jones rules.
So she did some really interesting things, but it didn't have this big thunderous sort of vibe either. So I think that there are enough good tube power amplifiers out there. If I was a synthesizer player, I would still want to play through a tube amplifier, and I would probably want to play through 412 calves, because not even to sound like a guitar player, but 412s with 16 ohm speakers are wired series parallel, so they have an unusual interaction between the speakers because of the way they're wired, and then the behavior of the 412 cab. They just, to me, they're just the fix for everything. And if you need more power so that they don't break up, it doesn't mean you have to use the power. A synthesizer has a much wider bandwidth and frequency response,
Right.
so when you need to play real big low notes, you need a cabinet that will handle the sub.
We're playing toing.
Yeah.
And they're like,
But I mean, I can relate to the John Lord thing. I would still want to have 412 cabs and not basically a portable PA or portable PA speakers, because I do like the sound, the softer sound of guitar speakers. And the whole thing about the speaker system for a synthesizer has to be hi-fi. I don't buy into that, because your ears still listen to, you still process frequencies the same way your ears do. And having super fidelity it's not necessarily pleasant to listen to. Sometimes the behavior of the power amp and the speaker with whatever the instrument is, whether it's a bass, I like 412 cabs for bass. I love 412 cabs for bass. For any other kind of cab, I would have a 412 cab for bass and a tube power, even if it needs to be 200 watts.
Because you're just playing the big guitar.
Yeah. So to me, 412 cab and a big tube power amp cures all ills.
Yeah. All right. One more question.
Yeah.
And then we got to get out of here. It's from Buddy Scott. What are your thoughts, opinion on, can I read this? On the differential distortion in the Laney clip, KLIP. You know this?
Oh, I haven't seen that schematic in a long time. But I imagine you're probably talking about the way the phase inverter in the Laney behaves. And I honestly, let's have a quick look. Hey, look.
Hey, Mo.
Oh, I can't spell clip. Laney clip 100 schematic. Oh, look at that. Okay, here's a Laney clip schematic. And the Laney power amp, I recall this from past experience, and it is the power amp stage is a copy of the Marshall, which is a copy of the Fender done with EL34s. And
Scott's saying the distortion circuit has a preamp stage hooked up as a differential amp.
Let's see. Okay, so we have the two input stages, and then they feed. Yeah, it's basically got a I will have to analyze that a little bit more, but it it looks like a differential amplifier in between the input stage and the phase inverter, but it's not really. They're basically putting two stages effectively in series. And I said series, and then Siri popped up. Thank you. I don't need your help right now. Thank you. So it's set up. It's not so much that it's differential. It's just set up so that it clips symmetrically. So you've got a gain stage. If you take a Marshall, so you have the gain stage, the tone control driver, and then it goes to the phase inverter stage, and then it's got this stage in between the input stage and the tone control driver. That gives you, and I have to analyze it to see actually when it starts clipping and what it's actually doing. But you're saying that it supposedly clips symmetrically, and the reason that you would do that is to get more of a the right kind of distortion harmonics when you're making that stage clip. The cathode follower that drives the tone control circuit clips asymmetrically, and the phase inverter that drives the power tubes, when you push it hard enough, it clips asymmetrically as well, which is what gives it that nasal thing. So the additional stage in between all of that clips symmetrically just gives you more of the right kind of harmonic saturation that's symmetrical, so it doesn't have that pinch sound, to give you a little bit perhaps more sustain. What do I think about it? Well, hey, it's just a way to do distortion. Is usually when something is just so righteous that everybody just gloms onto it and it becomes the new thing that replaces everything else, then you have to sort of confront it and go, yeah, well, that would be the next evolution. But it was one of those things like the orange, where somebody tried a little experiment and it didn't catch on.
Yeah.
So why didn't it catch on? So my opinion, I don't really have an opinion. My thought is, if I actually played through one of those amps and experience it, I would have a thought. But my thought, looking at the schematic, is, okay, why didn't it catch on? It didn't have a universal appeal that made everybody go, this is the next thing,
Yeah.
right?
Let's go that way.
So I think my thought is that it's just one of those little holes in the stream of rabbit hole consciousness that you can go down and explore and re-explore and eventually come to the same conclusion that you came to, 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, which was, yeah, that was an interesting little hole. Now back to the main hole.
All right, and with that, we're gonna get out of here, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Stay happy, stay safe, stay cool.
And say it loudly, Siri, lock Bates car doors. See if it'll do it on his phone.
Siri, lock Bates car doors.
Bye.
I don't know what I said. I'll find out later, I guess. Cheers. Thanks for hanging with us. See you next time.